there, this is Craig McLaughlin and Mark Ryan. We are the co-founders of Finalytics.AI, and we are super excited to be here today at the Sitecore Symposium to share some of the insights that we have in the financial services category. Crazy last 18 months on us. Isn't it great to be doing these things at all now, right? Because we had such a period of time where these things were virtually turned off. We have worked on the Sitecore platform for, I think over 15 years, deployed, dozens of financial services website on the platform. More recently, we have been building a tool set that enables advanced personalization that plugs into the Sitecore platform, as well as other platforms, to yield personalized digital experiences. And so we're going to, as we go through the talk today, we're going to share with you a couple things. Number one, what are we trying to do? What's going on in the world of financial services that's dictating that incumbent organizations change the way that they're approaching the market? We're going to talk a little bit about why we configured the solution the way we did. And then Mark is going to jump in. He's going to share with you a little bit of the ins and outs technically and how we're using data to do interesting things. And then he's going to show you some examples of how we brought that to life. So in jumping in, what's going on in financial services? Historically, financial services is a world that is pretty dated, kind of slow, right? Banks and credit unions don't change an awful lot. They've been doing the same thing for a long time, which is what attracted big investors like Warren Buffett to go and invest in financial services, is because they were consistently and predictably yielding very, very high profits. Those big, thick castle walls actually did a great job of keeping banks profitable because it was hard to get into that market. Fast forward to around the middle, 2000, the world changed a little bit. Those big castle walls weren't just keeping banks profitable; they were actually keeping them insulated from innovation. So, really, really challenging time for incumbents and tough to get them to adjust. Banks think in terms of risk and risk management. They're great at it. Hundreds of years managing it really well. Totally counter to what's happened in terms of innovation in fintech, right? So it's taken some getting used to. What we see is that increasingly we're at this point where the incumbents are just on the cusp of starting to really lose some share, whereas the fintechs and the big techs are really starting to take off. I think 10 years ago, if somebody had said, hey, or do you imagine yourself having a financial services relationship with a digital first player, you might think twice about it. There might be some concerns. I think those concerns are going away. Certainly, if you look at the high growth of Chime during this time frame, there isn't that hesitancy that potentially might have been there before. And what that's doing, particularly in the last year, the pandemic has really pushed incumbent financial services into a strange dynamic where the mega banks that were dominant and growing year in, year out, all of a sudden have taken a little bit of a slowdown. They lost 6.5% market share last year. Fintechs that historically didn't have a really good handle on that kind of primary financial services relationship, all of a sudden started to grow. They picked up 7% market share in 2020. Pretty big deal. In the middle, the regionals and large regionals and community and credit unions have just kind of traded some share. But the big trends are there. Is that the mega banks are starting to shrink a little bit. They're starting to lose some of their lock hold on the market, and the fintechs are coming in strong, which puts every incumbent institution that we work with in a position where they're looking around and saying, "Hey, what are we going to do? How are we going to keep up?" And the first place they look is they say, "Our app or our online banking experience isn't what it needs to be. It needs to be better." And a lot of you hear great stories about a board member coming into a meeting in a regional community institution saying, "My grandkid, doesn't want to bank with us because the experience isn't as good as what he can get from Bank of America, Wells Fargo, or Chase. He doesn't want to switch." And so the inclination is inside the institution to go and switch out and get to a better banking solutions. They bring in, the guys like Nimbus, the guys like Q2, the guys like D3 or Backbase to look at better digital experiences, which is totally valid. Like switching out an old systems of record and putting a new systems of record interface on top of it makes sense. Every financial institution needs to deliver a good experience for the customer, right? It's 101. When somebody engages with you, it should be a delightful experience. But the problem is, incumbent institutions think that by doing this, they're solving the digital problem. And they're not, because if you look at why does a Chime growing so quickly, it's not because they offer a better app. It's not because their online banking experience is really intuitive, because they all kind of are intuitive today. It's because they're using data in compelling ways in the form of systems of intelligence to go and acquire new customers at scale. Just the same way big tech does, the same way fintech does. The product at the end of the day isn't really banking. The product is the consumer. How many consumers can you get? How fast can you grow? So what does the incumbent do? What's your reaction going to be? You've got to not just go and build a better authenticated experience. You've got to build a personalized digital experience that uses data to go and do a really good job of acquiring new customers at scale. And the best way to do that is through personalization. And so we're seeing, the incumbents use our platform, Finalytics.AI, in conjunction with Sitecore, to be able to go and acquire customers using behavioral data. So real time, here's how a user is navigating through an experience. Here's what they're interested in. And then we feed that behavior into our machine learning algorithm to then identify what's the right next product for that user. So just like Amazon, if you bought this, you might be interested in this, but that's being driven by machine learning, and it's being enhanced with second and third party data. So what else do we know about a user when they come to your experience? Well, we can enhance what you do know about them, because we have to agree, you only know a little bit about them. Even if you're a bank, you really only have a sliver of that understanding of that consumer. But if you bring in other additional information to complete your understanding of the picture of who that consumer is, you can really put forth an experience that is micro-targeted at who that individual is, using qualitative and quantitative data to inform that. And all of it is then put through our models. That's not someone on your team's opinion about what you think would convert better for that individual. But in fact, it's based on actual AI that's just chugging through the data, drawing correlations, and then putting the right content in front of the right user. And this is all being done with large amounts of data on an ongoing basis. We call it a journey orchestration solution that's built on top of tools like Sitecore to be able to yield experiences that are laser focused and directed. There are really 4 things that we're trying to do with it. Is for an incumbent financial institution, number one, we want to help you go in and do a better job with acquisition, bring in a new customer. We're going to drive up loyalty, so the experience they have with you is something that is compelling. We're going to widen and expand that relationship in terms of number of products, so increasing wallet share, and doing that all while lowering your cost to serve. So that's kind of the big picture. Why did we build this platform in conjunction or on top of Sitecore? And Mark's going to talk to you how we're bringing that to life in this next series of slides. So I'm going to hand over to Mark. I'm going to give him control of the slides, and I am going to go on mute and let him.
Thank you, Craig. Finalytics is integrating multiple data sources in the financial space. So building on top of sources such as web analytics and including data such as online product applications for things like checking accounts, credit cards, auto loans, mortgage applications, and digital banking data, as well as mobile banking data, and then enriching that data with third-party sources such as census data, FDIC, and NCUA data. And it's using all of this to develop machine learning models to predict what product a visitor would be most likely interested in, what type of messaging would resonate with the visitor, what type of service need the visitor might have, and what type of support need the visitor might have. And it's using these predictions to feed the data into Sitecore's personalization capabilities to make the experience more relevant for the visitor and higher converting for the financial organization. And we're going to look at some examples of how those models are developed. Now, a very simple one is with that data in a regression analysis, we find the attributes that correlate with success for a specific product in a specific segment and run a k-means cluster analysis. In this example, we can see a very healthy orange cluster on the upper right that is converting very well. And we find that this cluster has unintuitive attributes. In this particular case, it's females on Apple devices on Monday mornings are converting for checking and savings accounts at 3.2 times the rate of the default audience. Now, there's a lot of cool things you can do with this data. We could use it to drive content strategy. We could use it to influence our programmatic ad buying and our advertising. But the coolest thing that we think is now we have got a great capability of driving personalization to an anonymous audience. And as that visitor, as we learn more about that visitor, personalization gets more and more accurate. Now, with that data analysis, we develop decision trees that, again, are predicting the product, support, and service needs of the visitor. As you can imagine, with a typical bank or credit union, the amount of products, the amount of geographies, the amount of segments, the decision trees get quite complex. And so what we end up with is a hybrid decision trees that are predicting those steps everywhere from a net new anonymous visitor that has been on the site for 1 second, all the way to a loyal member that has 4 or 5 products and is logging into the site through online banking at least once a week. Now, in most cases, we're not letting the machine learning run on its own because we know that there are certain signals as the visitor is navigating the digital channel that matter more than others. For example, if a visitor to the site is logged into online banking, and we can see what products the visitor does and doesn't have, as well as some other attribution information, that's going to be able to influence the model much more positively than other anonymous variables. Or for instance, if we see a behavior, such as a visitor is searching for auto loans, an on-site search where they're looking at product content or using product calculators. And as well as looking at geography. We want to look at things such as how close is the visitor to a branch, or maybe how far away they are from an existing branch. We do all of this without any personally identifiable information. There's no need for new data pipes, and there's no need to integrate backend systems. Now, as I mentioned, the algorithm is predicting the products and support and service needs of the visitor, but that's not enough. We also need to know what type of messaging resonates with the visitor. For example, if we determine that the visitor is looking for a mortgage, we want to know, are they looking at rates and fees? Are they looking for a fast decision? Or maybe they're looking at a high-touch organization to support them through this process. Now I'm going to talk about how Finalytics integrates with Sitecore. So it takes these models and this data integration, and it feeds that into Sitecore. So that as Sitecore is rendering every single page of the digital journey, it's using that data, integrating with the personalization features in Sitecore to make the messaging and the promotion more accurate and more relevant to the visitor. And next, I'm going to drop out of the PowerPoint deck, and I'm going to show you screens of a real-world example. Now, we're going to use a credit union website to show how Finalytics personalizes the experience through Sitecore. In this case, I'm going to show this credit union example. And I've loaded up different scenarios on the tabs for time's sake. In this case, the visitors come to the site from Tallahassee, Florida. This credit union has recently opened a branch in Tallahassee, Florida. So in a very subtle way, on the card here on the lower right, it's promoting that addition of a new branch so the visitor can go and see the proximity of the branch as well as view branch details. Now that's a very subtle scenario. Let's look at something that's a little bit less subtle. In this case, the visitors come to the site from Orlando, Florida, and the algorithm has determined that the product that they're most likely interested in is a mortgage. And it's promoting the mortgage in different ways. You can see here in the marquee banner that it is promoting the mortgage through a rates-based messaging. Down here in the lower right, or I'm sorry, the lower left, it's promoting through a geo-based personalization. It sees that the visitor is in Orlando and is promoting a Orlando home buying guide. And down here in the right, for the high touch, high service type prospects, it's promoting that they talk to one of the mortgage experts. Now let's jump into another scenario. In this particular case, the visitor has come to visiting the site from a military base. This particular credit union has a good partnership with the military. And so the algorithm is promoting that in the marquee banner with branding messaging. In the middle card down below, it's promoting a product that's specific to the military. And because the military segment moves and travels a lot, in the card on the right, it is promoting the mobile banking product. Now, we've seen 3 different scenarios of how the experience is personalizing to the net new visitor, but it's also watching the visitor over their visits. Here, I'm going to search for an auto loan on the site. Using the on-site search, we can see several examples come up. On that visit, as well as subsequent visits, the algorithm is going to keep track of that, communicate that data to Sitecore, and you can see it's starting to personalize the experience based on the product interest of the visitor. Next, I'm going to show a different scenario. I'm going to search around the site and look at the mortgage product content and drill down deep into there. And again, on that visit or subsequent visits, we'll see when the visitor comes back to the site, it's now promoting the mortgage that I was looking at. And because I'm visiting from the San Francisco Bay Area, it's starting to promote some of the geo-based personalization. Next, I'm going to go and click Apply Now, and I'm going to start a product application, but I'm not going to complete it. Finalytics detects that, and so it's still promoting the product that I'm interested in, but now the messaging is changing. Now it's promoting that I get back into the product application and complete my application. And we know for financial institutions, the majority of people that start an application do not complete it. So this being able to get them into the application makes a big difference. Next, I'm going to go back into our very simple product application, and I'm going to complete it. And again, this is just a simplified version of a product application. I click continue, and I can see the thank you page, meaning I have completed it. Now, when the visitor comes back to the site, it's no longer going to promote that product because it knows the visitor has already applied for it, but it is going to start to promote the onboarding steps after the product application. So down here in the bottom, you can see, bottom middle, you can see it's promoting that I check my application status. And it could also promote things such as upload your documents or talk to your loan officer. And so we've seen how the experience is personalized for anonymous visitors and for applicants. Now let's actually go and log into online banking. So I'm logging into online banking as Mary. And you can see Mary has a couple products, a checking, a savings account, as well as a new car auto loan. And the balances are relatively low. With this data, the Finalytics is seeing the products that Mary does and doesn't have, as well as other attribution information. Based on the accounts and the balances, Mary appears like a younger visitor. And so it is promoting the next most likely products for Mary's segment, which in this case is a rewards credit card. And it also sees that Mary has never used the native mobile banking app. And so it is promoting that Mary go and download the native mobile banking app. So now I'm going to log out. We can see that Finalytics is still communicating to Sitecore that the credit card is the next most likely product interest for Mary. Now I'm going to log in as a different visitor. Now here I've logged in as Patricia, and you can see Patricia is a great member. Patricia has multiple accounts, including retirement accounts and a mortgage application, high balances across the board. And so based on this data, as well as Patricia's geography, she might be near a lake or a beach, it is estimated the next most likely product for Patricia is actually a boat loan. And so it's promoting that up here in the top card. It also sees that bill pay, Patricia has not used bill pay within digital banking. And so it's predicting that the next most likely service for Patricia is bill pay. Now I'm going to log out. So we've seen how Finalytics drives personalization through Sitecore for anonymous visitors, for known applicants, as well as existing members and customers. Next, I'm going to show you some reporting features for Finalytics. Now, we want to make sure that everybody understands how well the personalization is working and what needs to be optimized. And so we're reporting on how the personalization performs in terms of things such as application starts, application completes, and funding. We want to get very granular in the reporting. And so we show based on different products how well it's working, based on as well as different assets, such as different types of banners or different types of messaging, and as well as different pages across the site and different products. And we want to not only be able to demonstrate that the personalization is working in terms of application completes, but we want to be able to show how that is impacting the financial institution's assets and deposits. So we've shown how the algorithm personalizes the experience to make it more relevant for visitors and higher converting for the financial institution, and shown a higher level of granular reporting so that we can see and optimize how the personalization is working. And then with that, I'm going to hand it back to Craig.
Thanks, Mark. That was great. I mean, I've seen presentations before, but to me, that was the best one that I've ever seen you deliver in terms of walking through the impact of the solution on community financial institutions. We are really happy to have been here today, super committed to the partnership with Sitecore, and really looking forward to connecting with you all, even if it's via email or via the app. So please do reach out to us. Emails are pretty easy. First name at Finalytics.AI. So Craig or Mark at Finalytics.AI. We appreciate your attention and look forward to connecting with you further. Thanks. Bye-bye.